We have a 421 here. He wants to upgrade to a 521. He's had this for a few years. I built it. It's got a play drag port on it. The first thing I like to do before breaking everything down is check the resistance on the stator, just to make sure that he's not going to have any problems when he starts the motor up. The stator, red-green wire, in the 17.67 range, which is good. That's the source coil, and it needs to be 13.7 to 20.5 resistance. That one was in the 17 range. That works just fine. Now we are going to do the pickup coil. That is the striped, white with the green stripe, white with the red stripe, and we are gonna check the resistance on it. The resistance on it needs to be 94 to 140, and this one's in the 112 range, 112.6.5. So this coil is good, which is great because that's the first big step. Now I'm gonna tear this thing down. These are usually all 12 millimeters. These are 13, they're aftermarket. There are no washers because I use 1211 3-bond, and it looks like he hasn't had it apart since. Don't worry if some of the studs pull up because the nuts don't come off them. You can hand thread them back in. I've talked about that also. Always hand thread those in on these nickels plated cylinders because they will warp and cause you nightmares if you try torquing them down. It distorts the aluminum, which distorts the nickel, which makes you have a lot of problems. There's the top plate. The Pro Design head is a 3-piece. I already loosened the water neck, which was just a Phillips hose clamp. I'll take this second piece, walk it up a little bit, and then take off all these little O-rings around the studs here. The domes are stuck into the head. They're just keyed. They come out very easy. He was running a 20cc. Looks like he was running pretty rich. Even the burn in the domes say he was running pretty rich. He does have a little buildup. It's a safe, rich. The Nicosil on this looks good. And actually it looks perfect. It does have some time on it, but it is not completely worn out. The studs will stay with this top end because he's getting a Super Cub, which means a whole new head, and we'll put stock studs in it because we're not going to run a Pro Design. Just break everything loose and slide it on up. I always take these apart with the motor on its side because a lot of people will ship these with the oil still in them and it'll go all over the place. And I pull this off and then drain the oil out. Now, these will stick a lot because of the water hose. It's got an O-ring there, and a lot of times it'll be put together with a little bit of sealant also, but they swell up. So just take your time working it off. Sometimes they require a little massaging. There we go. Yeah, that had a little bit of sealant in it. That's so... Yeah, that wasn't going to leak. A little bit of something. I'll have to look at what that is. Did something come apart somewhere? This is a undercover ball bearing lockup. Not as popular as the finger lockups, but it keeps everything stealth, which I like a lot. Just a little sharpened pointer tool, and circlip comes right out. Then we should be able to just push it on out. Sometimes they get a little swollen, but this motor, you can tell, is in very good shape. Ran very rich, never got hot, probably didn't swell anything. So everything's gonna... I am sorry. Right here, when I was editing, it saved it and probably walked away from it for a few weeks, as editing takes a long time. And half my videos disappeared. Can't find them. So you're not going to see any of the clutch side being taken off. But that's just taking it apart. You want to see it being put back together. That's where the good stuff is. Okay, 3 long screws. This is a very good piece to have. Case saver. In case the chain breaks, it'll save the case from getting whacked and chipped. Whew. Can you see all that Loctite? Simple puller you can get off eBay. Motion Pro makes them, all kinds of different places. You just got to make sure they're reverse threaded, and you've got to make sure you get them as deep as possible. Don't half thread them in, because you'll pull the threads out. They're very fine. That one took a little persuasion. I got a little hot, so I don't want to touch it. It's a beautiful flywheel, not a mark on it. Beautiful stator, OEM, tested perfect. He was running 6 degrees timing on this. You should have this in your arsenal for side covers, anything with screws. Just a little smack will loosen it right up. Split in case. Okay, I'm trying to figure out where that shrapnel came from. Now again, somebody might have been in here and already had taken care of it, and that was just some residual left over. But there was a few big chunks. Anybody see any pieces anywhere? Uh-oh. Can you see down there? There are foreign objects. Ah, it's clutch. It's clutch pieces. Can you see the fiber? Now, is that something from an old clutch? Yeah, we'll have to clean all that out of there. Let's see if any of these come up broken. This is one of the weaker style clutches on the market, but it's got a lockout, so it'll hold. Well, it must have been a clutch change because this clutch is good. So what I'm guessing is the clutch broke. They installed a new clutch, cleaned out the side case, but never split the cases. And the clutch pieces went into the case transmission area. If you can see the machine marks. Every other ear was taken off here. There was an ear here taken off, an ear here, and an ear here. Same with the other side. You can see an ear taken off there, an ear taken off there. You can see the machine marks, ear there. Also done on this side. Ear there, ear there. Ooh, ear there. This one isn't spinning too good. We're gonna have to take it apart. It's whoa. Now, we got a good spin there, good spin there, good spin there. Everything's good except this guy. I'm gonna pull this transmission apart here. So we can replace that gear that's dragging. So I got this all apart, and what's happening is the bushing is pushing out and causing a pinch so the gear's not spinning correctly. I'll straighten that up and get it back together. We got the bushing pushed back in. All you have to do is get a socket the exact same size, maybe tap on it. I use a press. And then we'll put it back on and see how she likes it. Looks good. Okay, I think that wraps it up. Everything's looking good. We've got all the porting done to get this motor back together. That is the 521 Super Cub. Porting completed. It's a full drag port there. That is the upper case that's been bored and ported. Lower case trenched for that 10 mil crank. Upper case bored and ported, ears pulled out for the gigantic updrafts of the Super Cub. Yeah, the upper case has to be relieved for the crank also. Gonna start getting this thing, well, first we're gonna get washed up and then get it assembled. You've seen this before, but I like putting it in all my videos. Whether you have an aftermarket cylinder, a stock cylinder, it doesn't matter. All cylinders sold for Banshees have the underside here that have exposed water jackets. You have to plug these up. You have to plug these water jackets up or you will leak coolant. The OEM style are a little different. They're rubber plugs. These ones are 1/4 inch pipe plugs for the Cub series. Stuff like the Athenas and the stock cylinders, they all have the rubber style plug. Don't screw these in too far. They'll go all the way in. They'll go all the way through and drop in. You just want them below deck height so that it'll seal when you put it on the case and torque it down. Let's get this 521 put together. I'm going to do the seals always first here. They just push in. That's the shifter. And on top, we're going to get the clutch actuator here. It goes on the top of the case. We're going to put him in, get him ready. Just slide him right in there. Get that spring on the correct side of the case. Come on, up and over. Lay it. All right, that's ready. Got the dowel pins in. Gonna put the half moon clips in, one here in the rear transmission shaft there, one for the crank, and one small itty bitty one for the idle kick gear area up here. Okay, and the rest of these are crank, sprocket. We're gonna put this one on. We need he's got an aftermarket aluminum piece here on this one. Slide them on. Slide this seal on for this front sprocket and making sure the lip doesn't fold and the spring is not folded. Line it up. Get the bearings on those half moon clips. The front has its own clip all the way around the bearing. Easy as pie. Get the crank. Make sure the half moon clip rides in there right and the crank sets down good. Clears. This is the 10 mil, so the case was trenched, as you can see, and bored to fit the big ears of the 521 in. We're going to put this side seal on. That's the stator. We're going to slide that right on. Rib goes in the case, matches the seal. This one, the protrusions here go towards the crank, so it almost looks like it's inside out. The other couple get set to the side, as the water pump and side kicker gear will go in later. I'm going to take these bearings out, get the 3-bond all the way around, get this sealed up. We have the case sealed all the way around with the 3-bond. I will put the top case on. Make sure you get those dowel pins in there. Long bolt first. This one holds the clutch actuator down. 2 shorties in the rear. All the rest are the same size. It looks like we're missing one here. Missing case bolt. Bam. These are number sequenced: 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, come on, 15, 16. 8 are across the bottom, and that's where they tell you to start, but I always start on top, and then I flip it over and do the bottom. Always make sure everything rolls and acts normal once you seal the case up. You don't want to get it all the way together and have to break it down because something's hanging up. That's all good. Putting this half case clip on here. I believe they call it a plate cover in the manual and online in the FIS files. Main drive gear, key, main drive. This is always a tricky one, getting them put in. Perfect. Water pump is next, but we're going to put a little 3-bond in here, because we know that's a potential leak area. 3-bond it up. Slide the little water pump gear on there. Conical washer. Little Loctite. Let's do washer. Basket. This guy on there first. Make sure you get them set all the way on there. Sometimes you have to spin and hold that idle gear too. Washer. inner boss. Clutch. This is not the style clutch I would run behind a 521. It's very weak steels, and we space them every other as we put them on. Not too worried about the weaker clutch because he is running a lockout, which equals everything up. Get that in there. We're going to get the clutch case lock on there. So the rod and ball are in there. There we go. Make sure it sits down all the way. Ball bearing lockouts run these little spacers down each spring. That's the pancake bearing. It should not need to be readjusted, but we'll check on it as soon as we put a load on this. Ball bearing lockout installed. Whoa, stop production. Did you see the mistake I made there? Concentrating so hard on getting content and video right that I totally missed the shift shaft on this installation. See that? Well, right after I got done doing that, I had to tear it apart, put the shift shaft in, and get it back to where I was. So the shift shaft part of installation is not on this video, but you can catch that on my multiple other Banshee videos that I'm putting motors together. Sorry about that. Back to the show. Check, check, check. Do all your checks. Make sure everything's spinning freely and acting normal. Put the kicker on. Very easy. Stopper. Spline goes into the case there. This finger. And then the hook will come up and around. So install it just like this. Get it past the gear, past the idle kick gear. Make sure your finger is in the notch in the case, and then take and spin the spring all the way up and around. And there you go. Easy. Woodruff key. Just stock stator. This one's race gas. It's a Super Cub. We'll put it right on the 5 mark. It's a good OEM flywheel here. Well, I've been getting lucky with these a lot lately. They're sliding right on. They're not that easy sometimes. We're checking it with 18 thousandths. If you don't have one of these, serial box top is about the same. That's good. This was already set up by me once before and it hasn't moved, so we are good there. We're just going to sit this on loosely because normally you have to take it off when it's a new. I've never used these aluminum pieces. They always seem kind of flimsy, but he sent them with the motor, so we'll just loosely put it on there. Make sure you check your bearing and replace your seal every time you take this apart. That needs to be cleaned up. There's a lot of silicone in there. You must have had a leak at some point. Whew, that was a mess. Just getting the pistons ready. Breaking everything out. We're gonna put the pin in, clip one side, same as we do just the stock style cylinders. We'll measure these rings out, make sure we have proper ring gap. Come on, you're fighting me. Get deep down in there. Square it up. There we go. Well, thousandths ring gap. All right. They check out 12 thousandths. Slide the rings right over. I always do numbers up, right on the dowel pin. Just stick it in the groove and walk it around. There. On the dowel pin, walk it around. All right. Grab the block. It already has the water plugs in it. Got the base gasket on this mug. I like to razor blade the excess off that I put on there. Make sure the rings are on the dowel pin, squeeze them, drop the ears over the top. Just got to show them who's boss. There we go. On to the studs there. Stud extenders. There we go. Bigger the block, a little bit harder it is to get on there. Get this bolted down, get some studs in it, and be on our way. Nice new studs to put in. Remember with these kits that you don't want to do more than hand tighten these things in, because you will warp, crack the nickel, and then you'll be crying like a baby, because these things are expensive to have redone. Just making sure that the head goes on straight and there's no complications of it hanging up, and there's enough studs sticking out for all the nuts and bolts to go down. Nuts and washers, those are the bolts, are the studs. Just got to double check everything as you're going, or you'll do everything 2 or 3 times. Believe me, I still do it. A little harder to get nuts in there just because it's cast pretty tight. You can use the stock style nuts and grind off the skirts. You can find other kind of nuts that'll fit on there. You can buy ARP nuts. Just has to clear the casting. Let's get the head and domes on. This is a Chariot head. When you get it, you have to partially assemble it. You have to put this little cap on that has an O-ring. You have to put this water neck on and this water neck on. They all have O-rings. This one just screws in. It looks like a standard Chariot head, just like a standard NOS or Pro design, but they are specifically made to go onto the Super Cub. They are machined out under here, bigger, but look the same on the top. Same thing, gotta grease these O-rings up and stick them in. The grease keeps the O-rings from coming out of the groove when you assemble it. Two for the spark plug holes, 2 for the outside seal around the cylinders, and there'll be 2 for the domes. And that's it for this one-piece style head. These Super Cub O-rings, the O-ring kit is Super Cub only. You can't put standard O-rings in a Super Cub. The 72 bore is too big. You can use the standard O-rings for 64 all the way up to 68. Anything beyond that has to be unique for the purpose it's used. I just get the slots lined up, set them down. Normally I use spark plugs to hold them, but no need to hold them in the head because it is keyed. They only go on one way. Take the head, and it's already been fitted to make sure it goes down right. You just have to key into the domes. There we go. And I will assemble this one as per instructions. It's just a copper washer and then the nut all the way around. And that should seal up the water passages. Doesn't always do it 100%. Make sure you torque them down. Specs 18, but sometimes these heads want a little more to squish this copper washer. You can do 20. I wouldn't do over 22. Start stripping stuff out. You don't want to do that. There, isn't that pretty? Nice piece of billet. Almost done. Put the intakes on. Just double checking to make sure everything's rotating and nothing's hanging up. Let's check the squish on this guy. I can tell just by eyeballing it, we are good. It's a race gas motor. There we go. About 55 thousandths. Got this nice case saver that goes on. Every Banshee should have one of these, because you will break the top case as soon as you throw a chain. And why are you going to throw chains? Because you either run cheap chains or you never replace them. Nobody ever replaces their sprockets and chains. So, if you're watching this video, get out there, replace both sprockets and your chain. I always glue the intakes up. These rubbers have to be glued. No getting around it. They will leak if you do not glue them. So, 3 bond. Let that set up. 3 bond. V-force for reeds being put in. Get everything all lined up. Let's finish this guy up. This is the last step before I throw him in the crate. This is the 521 build. This is a leak down test where you feed air into the motor to make sure none of the mating surfaces or seals are leaking. You plug up the exhaust. I believe those are 1.5. All this stuff you can buy at Home Depot. These are in the piping section where they do sprinklers and all that. This is PVC. Plug up the intakes. Stick one spark plug in, plug up the exhaust. feed about 6 to 8 pounds of air into the motor. Let it hold for 6 to 8 minutes and make sure you have no bleed off. This motor is tight as can be. I think it's been on there for half an hour. That needle hasn't moved. That's the one you don't want moving. That'll show the bleed off. That shows the pressure. All right, I'm going to crate this one up and get them shipped off.